Hello, so this is the second video. In this video we will configure a MIDI device to communicate with MPC. So the device I'm going to configure, it's a little bit strange for the Lightning controller, but it's the one that I have available. It's UMA25S from the Behringer. And if you have a controller like the BCF 2000, which is very common, MPCTools will install some files for the most common devices in Documents, My Maxis Files, MPCTools, Devices, Factory. So here you'll find, for now we just have for the BCF 2000, you'll find the 6x file, which you can use with the BC Manager or other tool to upload to your BCF. This is a preset that works along with this file over here, which you will import to MPCTools. So if your device is not here in this folder, you'll have to do the mapping manually. And to do it, we just open MPCTools, and by default MPCTools will wait for MPC to run. Since we are not yet controlling the M series software, we just want to define our faders and buttons. We can continue anyway, but I advise you to every time start MPC first and then MPCTools. So we'll continue anyway, just to configure our MIDI device. And I still haven't registered this version in my computer, so I have to wait a few seconds. Okay, now that it's loaded, we just have to go here to the MIDI tab, and here is the list of MIDI devices. If we want to add a BCF that's chipped in the factory folder, we just hit this load button, come to the factory folder and load the BCF. So what does this device have? This device will work on device space 0, which is the same as MPC, and has motorized faders, and these are all the faders available, these are all the buttons available. So this is already done for you for the BCF, but if you come across a controller that it's not present on this list, on this folder, you just have to do it your own. So I will delete the BCF because I don't have it right now, and I will add a new device, and I will name it UMA25S, just like the name of the model of the controller, and we'll assign the input and output MIDI devices in Windows, and this is how the module is recognized. And I want to set it to work on the same device space as the MPC. If you want to control a different bank on your device, a different bank than what MPC currently shows, you have to select a different device space. This is exactly like an OSC device, and we don't have motorized faders, so our MPCTools will have to do some fader latching to make sure you don't have jumpy faders. And right now you just added the device, and MPCTools doesn't know how many faders and which faders and buttons the device has, so we have to click this button and start adding our faders and our buttons. To do that quickly, so I'll do for the faders, click here, learn and auto add fader, and each time I move a little bit one fader or potentiometer on the controller, it will recognize the MIDI type, if it is not on, not off, or control change type MIDI, the channel, and the address or data of that particular control. So I will physically move the first fader, and you see that it is automatically added to the list. So it's MIDI type 0 or control change on channel 0, and the data is 74. I will continue and do this for all the faders, and it seems like I missed one. Okay. So since I don't have them in order, I just go on and delete everything and do it again. So first, second, third. Okay, so my 8 faders on the controller, these ones over here, are already mapped, and MPCTools now knows that these faders exist. I will add the volume fader also, just to map it to a different function. So I will, with this selected, I just have to move, and I have another fader, and I can give it a different name, so I'll call it volume, just like it is labeled in the device itself. Okay. And now for the buttons. This controller doesn't have much buttons. It has basically these ones over here, but it has a bunch of keys, and these send MIDI on and note on and note off messages, MIDI messages, and MPCTools deals well with this type of messages. So I just want to click 3 buttons, so I will click this one, and this one to learn them in MPCTools. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I have 3 buttons here to play a little bit with them. And now that MPCTools knows these faders and these 3 buttons, we can start adding functions to our controls. So you click here on function assignments, and this window opens, and in this window you will able to select one particular control you want to set a function to. So let's imagine you want to set the function for the first fader, and here you will see the events of this control. So for example, buttons have on button down and on button up events, and you can assign different functions to each of these events. And on fader you only have the event of fader movement, and you will have to select the event and then the function for the event. So by default all the functions are none for all the events, and once you start adding events, for example in this fader maybe we want to control the main playback fader number 1. In here on the right you have different parameters for the function you have selected. You will have different parameters depending on the function. In this case we just have to select which is the playback that we want to control with the fader, and then we just have to click assign. So you see now that the label of the control is now a little bit gray, and also that indicates that we have a function assigned to, at least one function assigned to this control. And also on the events list we see that we have here the function assigned to it. There is also one other button, that is the smart assign button. With this, what this does is, for example, fader number 2 we want the playback number 2, and then you want fader number 3 on playback number 3, fader number 4 on playback number 4, etc. And this is actually what smart assigns allows you to do. It assigns the function you have selected to the control you have selected. It automatically goes to the next control and increments the number corresponding to the function that is selected. So if I click smart assign, we'll move to the 3rd fader, and automatically the playback number is set to 3. If we click here, we will assign fader 3 and go to fader 4, and so on until you reach the last fader. So all the faders are now mapped to the first 8 faders of MPC. Now I just want to set the volume to control the grandmaster, for example. Assign, no parameters for this function, but you can see here that it's already assigned when I click this button. And then some bank changes on the first, for example. So the first button will go to previous bank, the second button will go to the next bank, and this will do, I don't know, maybe a go or the up button of playback 10, for example. And for example, in this function we have the behavior of the button. Let me click just assign and explain a little bit. So if you set this function on button down with the behavior click, what the behavior click does is it holds the button, waits a little bit, and releases the button. So it's just like if you did that in a real M2Go or M2PC or a playback wing. You hold and wait and release when you hold down the MIDI button, when you go down with the MIDI button. But if you want to do some fancy stuff like holding release and then the go button, for example, to do a release of that playback, this won't work. Actually, it would work for the go button, the up button, but wouldn't work for the release button, because you want the release to be held while you have the MIDI button also held. So I will explain this a little bit better. So I will change number button 2 to, for example, key release. Let's say main release, and then assign. Okay, so this is a main release with click behavior, and this is a main up with click behavior. When I click this button, it will click, hold release, and then release it, release the button after a few milliseconds, before I even have time to click this. So for this to work, you have to assign on button down the hold behavior, and on button up the same key with release behavior. Okay, so it's the same function. On button down it will hold this key, and on button up it will release this key. And this will actually work if you want to release, for example, playback 10 holding button 2 and while clicking on button 3, MIDI buttons. So another cool feature about this is that you don't have to remember what are your buttons, your faders. You just have to click them physically. So if I hit right now on the controller button number 1, I will jump to button 1, and I can easily change the functions without having to know on the list where the controls are. So in the same way, if I move the volume, this control over here a little bit physically, the software will jump to the volume control here as well. Okay, so now that everything is set up, you don't need to save anything. Everything is automatically saved. Only if you want to export or backup your MIDI device, both faders, buttons, and assignments, it will go all together. You can click this button over here, which will save, and by default it will go to the devices folder. By default it will have the same name as your MIDI device on the list over here. And I advise you never touch, never save on the factory folder, because when you upgrade to a newer version, it will overwrite the files you have here. So always work with your own MIDI dev files outside the factory folder, actually on MPCTools/devices folder. So I can save it, no problem here. I can delete it and I can recall it later, or in another computer maybe. You just have to just select the input and output devices again, and everything will be back as you saved it. Okay, so now we want to control MPC. We have to go back to the beginning and close MPCTools, because MPC was not running when we started MPCTools. So we have to close it. Can close this also. Open MPC, and only after loading our show file we should load MPCTools. So let's wait a little bit for MPC to load. Let me say it again, I always advise you to first start MPC and then MPCTools. Never do the other way around. So we load our training file as an example. And okay, we are ready now to start MPCTools again. It always checks for updates in the beginning if you have internet connection. And you have a max external MIDI dev service running. So this is an internal service of MPC, and this is the service that allows you to connect MIDI devices directly to MPC to work with your MIDI macros or your MIDI show control input. It turns out that this will prevent you from use MIDI input on MPCTools sometimes, and then you should disable it if you are going to use MIDI input on MPCTools. So you click yes, and we have to wait again because we didn't have registered yet. I can explain. This is the registration is done with a simple donation. So this is freeware file. You can use it personally or commercially, no problem. But if you don't register, you always have to wait this amount of time in the beginning. So now come to here to the MIDI. You see that we have our faders, buttons, and also all the assignments we did previously here. So we just have to select on connect MIDI. Okay, so the MPC says that there was a device detected. It means that the communication is going well between MPCTools and MPC, and if I remember correctly, I assigned the first actually all the faders, all the potentiometers here, the 8 potentiometers to the first 8 playbacks over here. So I will move the first one, I mean this one, which was assigned to this playback over here, or this playback over here, and I will expect it to move. Yeah, it's working, and I can go on and play a little bit with them, and everything is working as expected. Also, my first button, this one is set to go to the next bank, right? Well, actually I don't remember if it's next or previous. I think it's previous. So let me go to the functions. It's the first button and it's previous bank. Okay, so let me change it to go to next bank, assign, and the function is assign over there. Connect again. And if I click this first button over here, this one, we'll see what happens. So the bank is changed to number 2, and there's this pop-up over here that says, okay, your device UMA25S is on bank number 2. This is very important when you decide to change your device space for a device space that is different than 0. So if your device space is 1, you are working on a different space than MPC is. So if you change your bank to bank 1 on MPC, your device will stay on the bank it was before. I don't know if it is on bank 1 or bank 2 right now. I think it's on bank 1 because device space 1 didn't exist before. Okay, I'm controlling using the potentiometers right now. It's on bank 1, and if I hit the first button, you will notice that the device is on bank 2, but your MPC stays on bank 1. So you have here 10 faders, and I have on my controller other 8 faders, which are the faders on bank 2. Okay, so let me see if we can see these faders moving while going on bank 2. Maybe, yeah, maybe on. So our submasters here are assigned to the same, to the same cue list. So if I move the fader here, we'll see the fader there already also moving. So since I have my controller controlling this fader, and I'm using the potentiometer, the first potentiometer, to move this, you will see if I change the bank to bank 1 on MPC, I will still control the same because I'm in bank 2 in my controller. Okay, so what remains to test is that release function. So we have button 2 doing a release on button down and releasing that button on button up, and also we have this main playback button up click on playback 10 in button 3. So let's connect it again. It means that if you go to the same bank as the MIDI controller is, which is in bank 2, let me check. Yeah, we are in bank 2. It means that our second button will hold down this key, the release key, and this button will control this go over here. This is the button up of playback 10. So just like as we expect to happen, if we do it here with the mouse, we should hold down release. I will use the right key, the right button on the mouse to emulate the hold on the release. Click go and then release the release button, and this releases the cue list. So let's check if we can do the same with our MIDI buttons. So let's put the cue list running, and I will hold down the second button. So hold down this button, we'll click on this, release this, and then release this. So first step, hold down the second button, click on the third button, and release the second button. And as we expected, the cue list was released. So it's working as we wanted it to work. One final note on fader latching. So we defined that our faders control these faders over here, and also that our controller didn't have motorized faders. This means that if I set the potentiometers somewhere in the middle, I'll try the 50%, okay, and if we move the fader here in the software, for example, to 0% on the first one, if I move now my first potentiometer, I'm somewhere in the middle, if I move it, it won't send anything to MPC. Only when I go almost to the 0%, yeah. So that little jump is just to prevent that if you go beyond your level on MPC, it will still latch the fader and continue pushing from the point where you stopped. So if I drag this physically to 25% and then go to 80% on the software, I keep moving it up until I get to that level, and then I can control it again. So this is fader latching, is something new on the newest version, and actually asked by many people, and I think it's working okay right now. So this is the tutorial or the crash course on connecting your MIDI devices to MPC. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, just ask in the comments or in the Martin forums. Thank you for watching.